This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Tonight, down at Canada Life Centre, is the final home preseason game for the Winnipeg Jets before the season gets going a week from tonight in Edmonton against the defending Western Conference champion Edmonton Oilers. Tonight, the Jets hosting the Calgary Flames. We'll get into the lineup, a little more from the morning skate, hear from Scott Arniel, and talk about it with Scott Billeck from the Winnipeg Sun a little bit later on. We'll also get ready for NHL Puck Drop with ESPN's Greg Wyshynski, who's going to join us coming up in the first segment of the program, just after 1:30 if you're with us live on YouTube today. And then Billeck a little later on. We'll get into some football news and notes as well later on in the program. We'll look forward to hearing from you on our Fans First fan feedback segment after Greg Wyshynski. And, of course, hit the cool bet lines and pay attention to this Major League Baseball playoff action that is already underway after a heck of a first day on the diamond yesterday. Going to be a real fun show. And it doesn't end with WST Daily today, because right after we finish up with Winnipeg Sports Talk, the Hammer will join me from the Hammer. Jeff Hamilton traveling today, but will be in Hamilton by the time we fire up CFL 110, brought to you by Garage Living Winnipeg. And we'll look ahead to another huge week in the Canadian Football League, talk about the latest in the MOP race and the other big stories around the league. So be sure to stick around right after WST for the latest edition of CFL 110. Just before we bring in Michael Remis, do want to thank all of our sponsors that make this show happen each and every day. Of course, Coolbet Canada, Princess Auto, the Winnipeg Jets. We'll let you know about the WST ticket pack, our ticket options that we announced yesterday on the program in a little bit. Of course, Rolly's Transfer, Consolidated Supply, Manitoba Battery, Fans First, Canadian Club, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, Little Brown Jug, Canadian Club, F Apparel as well. Michael Remis joins me now. Remo, what's up? You ready for one final preseason game at the barn tonight before we get going for real next week?
Yeah, I'm ready. Enough. We're seeing guys get injured. The preseason's dragging on. I know the official season starts, Thursday, Friday. There's games in Europe. Hard to get really excited about those until we have the full day of games. But I did have my first hockey draft of the year yesterday. So now I'm ready. I'm just reading everything I can about the guys that I pick. It's here. Summer. It's winding down. It's raining. We had the beautiful last weekend, but now it's hockey season.
It was nice around here on the weekend, wasn't it?
Oh, you weren't here, man. I got a text from people wakeboarding at the lake. It's the last weekend of September. It was beautiful outside.
Well, that was nice. I mean, I would have loved for it to wait until we got back from Montreal. But, considering how nice the weather was there, where it was pouring rain up until noon on Thursday for the President's Cup to start, and then it was absolutely glorious, 24, 25 every day, I will take it. But, it does feel a little bit more like fall today. The leaves are changing, and that means we are just about ready to drop the puck on an NHL season. Just before we get to tonight's matchup and hear from Scott Arniel. Last night in the preseason, We saw another. Well, listen, your guy Wi-Fi there in Montreal has been. Well, he's been involved in a few incidents already in this preseason, and yesterday took a serious run at Tim Stützle, knocking him out of the game. I was shocked, and we'll talk about this with Wish when he comes on a little later on. A lot of talk about the preseason, about shortening the preseason. They don't want guys to get hurt during the preseason, which I totally get. There is something to be said, and Brian Hayes put this out on Twitter. Maybe, for the preseason next year, we don't have teams play within the division. Because you saw that Ottawa-Montreal game last night. These teams absolutely hate each other. And, Shekai is a player. I mean, I know I guess he did spend a little bit of time in the minors at the end of the season, but, he's really looking to establish his spot in the lineup. And sometimes guys do that and do stupid things at the expense of other players. Stützle was the guy last night. And Ottawa, in last night's game, had Chabot, Tkachuk, and Stützle all leave the game due to what they referred to as upper body injuries. Now, I'm not sure how precautionary it was. It is the preseason. I mean, does the game really matter? No. But they sure as hell matter if your guy's out for an extended period of time. And listen, Montreal already had the terrible injury to Patrik Laine, although great news on that. He's going to be out 2 to 3 months, not the entire season. So for many of the Laine fans that join us each and every day, that was some really good news. But, all this talk about the preseason, I mean, there's a lot of dumb stuff that happens in it, which is nothing new. And now apparently, Remo, they're talking about reducing the number of preseason games, which I think everyone would be fine with, but adding 2 more games to the regular season for an 84-game year. Didn't we do that a few years ago? And they said, oh my God, guys, this is too much, and dialed it back a bit. And for the NHL to dial it back a bit, that it was a serious concern about a number of the stakeholders.
Yeah, the NHL Board of Governors are meeting this week, and the CBA is due to expire September 2026. And Gary Bettman was saying talks were going to begin in 2025, which seemed early. So that's why this topic was coming up. We've seen, a number of injuries this preseason, Hustler, and especially just yesterday. Chabot, Brady Tkachuk, Tim Stützle, Macklin Celebrini injured yesterday. Artemi Panarin left with an injury. And we've already seen Patrik Laine and Drew Doughty out with long-term injuries. The preseason, it's too long. And I think you also have these games where we're going to see one tonight where one team is sending, close to a regular season roster, and another team is sending guys that aren't exactly NHL caliber. As far as extending the season, I don't think anyone wants that. It's already too long. I'm with anyone who says it should start October 1st and end before June. And last year, it ended like 2 days before the NHL draft in the last week of June. So I don't know what they're going to do. The owners aren't going to want to give up, the revenue, the HRR, the hockey-related revenue from these preseason games. I think Edmonton had more than us. I was talking with Tom Gazzola. They had 8 or something. I don't think the Jets had that many, but it's too long. You're seeing preseason's been, guys don't want to come out and get hurt, and you have other guys trying to make a name for themselves. So I think you have a tough give and take there. But I'm not sure what they're going to do because I don't think the owners want to give up the revenue they get from these preseason games.
No, listen, there will be a total of 0 decisions made by the NHL BOG that cost them money. I mean, at the end of the day, I know we all say the goal of everyone is to win the Stanley Cup. Well, actually, no. The goal of everyone is to crank out as much HRR as possible. One team is going to win the Stanley Cup, but every team can make millions of dollars. That's part of the reason why we are where we are with a season that goes incredibly long. And I mean, we saw it last year. It was absolutely absurd. The Panthers win the Stanley Cup, and the very next day, their executives are on a plane to Vegas for the draft. I mean, everyone realizes that there is, if you were starting this all over, I don't think you're having a season that's more than 70 games. Some would say, like, can you imagine a 60-game season? I mean, just how good the hockey would be, how important each game would be. Then you add in 3-point games, which should happen that they don't seem to ever talk about anymore. And I mean, I think we would really be cooking with something. I mean, at the end of the day, these are topics really for the future. Nothing's going to change over the next couple years. But bringing it back to tonight, this is a night, Reem, that when you look at the matchup, I mean, would you like to see the Jets look good against a team that's not bringing most of their NHL talent? Absolutely. But to be honest, regardless of what happens tonight in the game, you just want your guys to make it out healthy and being ready to start that game next Wednesday against the Edmonton Oilers at full strength. And there's been a lot of teams that have had, pretty significant injuries so far. Certainly the Jets have had a couple, not through the preseason as far as I know. I mean, the Ville Heinola thing was an infection, and obviously Logan Stanley tweaking his knee or whatever happened to his knee and now out with after having some surgery. But it does make for an intriguing night tonight, with the younger players, including Lambert and Chibrikov and Elias Salmonson that are in the lineup. The one thing I'll say about the potential to reduce the number of preseason games, I think that really would, hamper the likes of the Lamberts, the Salmonsons, the Chibrikovs, that young players need to take advantage of what they can do in the preseason to earn more time and a more longer look right now. And, I know the younger players probably want more preseason games. The older guys couldn't care less and just want to be ready for the start of the game. So there you have it. I mean, as far as if you're looking at the screen right now, the Flames are going to start Dustin Wolf. I mean, the only real regular NHL players in their lineup on the blue line, Kevin Ball, Tyson Barrie, and Jake Bean. I'm going down the list of their forwards. I mean, Pelche, Coronado, Anthony Mantha. I forgot Anthony Mantha ended up in Calgary this year. Connor Zary, and then a bunch of other guys that are probably battling for roster spots or potentially going to be playing in the American Hockey League. So that's what Calgary is sending. Winnipeg in their final home game will dress a lineup much closer to what we'll see a week from today in Edmonton. Schleife, Vlardy, Connor. Nemetsnikov in between Perfetti and Ehlers. Adam Lowry playing with Gus and Jared Anderson-Dolan. And then the other line, Brad Lambert, Nino Niederreiter, and Nikita Chibrikov. And the only thing that really changes from yesterday's practice, Reem, is that it was Alex Iafallo that was on the right side of Brad Lambert. Chibrikov, one of those young players looking to take advantage of opportunities in the preseason to earn a spot with the team. He's going to get in. And I'll be honest, I mean, I'll be at the game tonight, and that might be the line that I'm most interested in to see what they can do. Both the two former Moose players or last year's Moose players playing together, but also doing it with a guy like Nino Niederreiter on that left wing. And listen, we can move in Alex Iafallo. You can move in Mason Appleton, on the Lowry line, however you like. The fourth line, if that is your quote-unquote fourth line with Brad Lambert and a Nino Niederreiter and Chibrikov, or again, Iafallo, it certainly does seem to give the Jets a little bit more juice top to bottom of that lineup than what we saw last year under Bones for most of the 82.
Yeah, it just seemed like last year you weren't getting a lot of offense. I know that third line was exceptional in terms of defense. Appleton, Lowry, and Niederreiter, but maybe and the fourth line, you got to play those guys too, and you weren't getting a lot there. So maybe Lambert could be an option there, or you rejig the way that they had that third line stable together kind of dictated how the bottom one was going to look, and maybe they go for a different style. What they're looking for. You have Lambert and Chibrikov, guys who've played together on the Moose, and a veteran like Nino. Maybe that's a fit there. We'll see how that looks. I liked how Anderson-Dolan looked with Lowry in the game here against Edmonton. I mean, everyone looked good in that game, but we'll see. And I'm curious, about Gus. It was him and Kupari battling for that fourth line center. Maybe they say, hey, can he work in this role? Well, I think that's what they're looking to see. We'll get to see Perfetti, Nemesnikov, and Ehlers together. We're projecting that as line 2. I think who is the Jets' second-line center? I think Nemesnikov is going to start game 1 there, and Connor Shafley-Velarde, another go. On defense, Morrissey, DeMello, they're back together. Fleury, Coughlin, was that your fifth or fourth D pair? And Elias Salamonson getting a look with Simon Lundmark, who's looked very solid this year. So an interesting look on defense. And Connor Hellebuyck looking to get bounce back from
Big game
Minnesota
for Helly tonight. I'm calling it right now. After whatever happened in Minnesota, which many people did not see because it was only on the website and the Bombers were playing at that time. Whatever the heck happened, it is in the rear view. I think Hellebuyck comes out with a strong performance tonight. I have not wagered a single dollar on the NHL preseason so far this year.
I thought about it.
That might change tonight. I did pull up CoolBet right now. Jets minus 250 to win and minus 1.5 at plus 105 to win by 2. So I don't know. Maybe we'll think about a little sprinkle on that. But listen, you know what? We're going to have Wyshynski come up, and we're going to hear from Scott Arniel in just a minute. Do want to mention to everybody, if you missed yesterday's show, we are good to go with our Jets tickets. We had such a great time last year with the WST pack, those 4 games we went to with so many Winnipeg Sports Talk listeners. And we hope you'll join us again. And this year, we've done it a little differently. What we've done is pick the WST game of the month. Each month, starting with our 1A game, Jets, Penguins, October 20th, Sidney Crosby, potentially Rucker McGroarty. It's either going to be Rucker McGroarty getting a lot of heat or Section 316 chanting, "Where's Rucker?" for 3 periods in that game. The other games are Jets and Panthers, Stanley Cup champs, November 19th, Maurice return. Maurice still has never beaten the Jets since he left here, by the way. Just thought I'd throw that out. A little holiday game, Jets and Wild, Saturday, December 21st. Should be real fun. Jets and Kraken, Thursday, January 16th. And then a couple great Friday night games, Jets and Islanders, February 7th. And the Jets and Devils, March 28th. You'll get a drink with each ticket. You'll be able to come in early, join us for a little get-together, and set up shop in the bar outside 316 beforehand. So what you're going to do, if you're listening to the podcast right now, go to winnipegjets.com/WST. It'll take you right there. Because of the way that tickets are priced, the Penguins game, which is an A game, is more expensive than the other games. So there's a different price for each game. The first one's 104, and the rest of them are anywhere between 61, I believe, and 90. And again, that includes a beverage of your choice at the arena. So let's get this going and kick it off great on the 20th of October for that Pittsburgh game. Jump on it now. Remis will put the link in the chat and save that. It's right there for you. It's also in the link for the description. There's also a link for a promo code for the home opener, which of course is on the 11th of October. So, man, we had a great time last year. Hopefully everyone that was with us will be back, and we'll do it up bigger and better this year with a game of the month for WST. The first one, October 20th, for the Jets and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Again, winnipegjets.com/WST. Get on it, and we will see you there. CFO on 10 coming up later on after the show, brought to you by Garage Living Winnipeg. Stick around for that. Do want to thank our friends at Rolly's Transfer for their great support of WST. Listen, folks, if you have a move coming up this year, we know how stressful moving can be. Take as much of the stress out of the move by using the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba for over 60 years, Rolly's Transfer. Family owned and operated right here in the city, now into their 7th decade. Rolly's has an incredible logistics business that takes them throughout Winnipeg and Manitoba on a daily basis, which means flexible routes and timing. and great rates on your move. What you're going to do is go over to rollies.com. You can find out more about the company. They've got a fantastic new website that they relaunched a couple months ago. But while you're at it, top right corner, request an estimate. Pop in. First thing you do, put in WST for a special little discount for WST listeners on moving services and supplies. Let them know where and when you're moving and what you're going to be moving, and they'll turn it around with a quick estimate for you and get you set up for your next move. Again, for your next move, use Rollies Transfer, the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba for over 60 years. Find out more, request an estimate today at rollies.com. A big thanks to our friends at Consolidated Supply for their great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Consolidated Supply, been with us for years, a household name within the golf industry as the leaders in irrigation systems and solutions, but also artificial turf. Golf carts is the exclusive club car dealer in Manitoba, and other great options for your property, including hot tubs and amazing outdoor kitchens, as well as the leaders in small engine parts and repair, and carrying the brand new line of Crest power tools as well. You got to pop by and see them in person. Head on down to their showroom for Consolidated Supply, open to the public, 1395 Niagara Road East, or find out more online at cte.ca. And hey, I got to shout out Donnie and the gang at Manitoba Battery. What a summer it's been. A summer that basically extended apparently through last weekend for what Remis just said. All those wakeboarding boats and trips and the boating you've been doing and the camping trips and the ATVs and the motorbikes, all those things need batteries, and Manitoba Battery is where you're powering your summer fun all year long. Much to the chagrin of all of us, the leaves are changing and winter is just around the corner, and you need to be ready. Make sure that your car or your truck battery is good to go for winter. And when you need batteries, it's Manitoba Battery. Shop local, get the best prices in town, period. Beating the pants off the big box stores, and with the best service as well, as they'll deliver those batteries to you for free anywhere inside the perimeter with any purchase over $60. It's just that easy. Pop by and see them on Logan Avenue or on Dover Court at their new location, or give them a call or order online today at manitobabattery.com. All right, we're going to have Greg Wyshynski come up and join us in a bit. But let's get to, well, we just mentioned the lines for tonight's game. I love the fact that we've been hearing more and more from practices how much this team has been working on special teams. I think we'd all agree that's something that needs to get better, and they certainly seem to be putting a lot of attention on it. Power play expected tonight, and what they were working on: Scheifele, Morrissey, Connor, Ehlers, Velarde. The second power play unit's going to feature Brad Lambert, Perfetti, Niederreiter, Coughlin, and Nemetsnikov, and Chibrikov is also working in with the second unit. But Coach Scott Arniel spoke, and this is kind of what he wants to see from his team tonight in the final preseason game in front of the home fans.
Monday we had a chance to, again, just a specialty teams day. Take some of the video from some of our games, exhibition games that we had, and some of our stuff from practice, and then the coaches threw that in, and so that'll be interesting tonight to see how that unfolds. See if the guys are it'll be really a lot closer to our guys that'll be out there, so see how that kind of plays itself out. For me, yesterday was a little bit more. So also then we had a chance also, I think it was Sunday we had the scrimmage. Yeah. And so just a case of now it was hammering down the systems again. As our numbers are getting a little bit smaller, it was kind of driving it up. There'll be emphasis tonight on my meeting with the team prior to the game. It'll be, again, what are we doing without the puck? The things that we need to do to make sure we get it back against Calgary. Offensively, some of the things that we want to build on, and just so it's really kind of just now it's ramping them up a little bit more serious about how we kind of approach these games. Our veterans are getting a little antsy. Just talking to them, they feel like it's been 3 weeks since they last played, but this will be more kind of season-like because a lot of them will play tonight and a lot of them will be back in Friday. So it's good habits. That's probably the biggest thing I need to throw at them.
All right, so there's Arnie on what he wants to see from the team tonight. We mentioned that Brad Lambert is in tonight, Elias Salmonson in tonight, Nikita Chibrikov in tonight. Arnie was asked on what he sees and what he wants, just talking about the number of players that are fighting for NHL jobs that are still in camp, and many of them in that lineup tonight.
As a coach, it's if the players don't go out and do what they need to do, it makes my job easier, and it hasn't been easy so far. So that's why I've emphasized that what we do in practice is just as important what we do in the games. Whether I match up a young player against some veterans to see how they handle that responsibility, whether I put some of the veteran guys in different roles, whether it's left wing, right wing, wherever it might be, maybe into the middle, whatever, just putting them in roles in both games and practice so I can see them in live reps, kind of going head to head against other players. And it's just, they're making it difficult. I would say everybody that's fighting for an opportunity has really been putting their best foot forwards, and we'll just, as an organization, we'll got to keep going day to day. We'll judge tonight, continue tomorrow. We'll have some more things tomorrow that we'll look at, and then obviously Friday will be kind of the last time.
All right, so there's Arnie. Now, Brad Lambert, as we mentioned, is in. And to be honest, I think this is a smart move. Like, I am hoping that Brad Lambert's going to be on the team and will be in the lineup. He is going to be playing on what looks to be a bottom six role, along with Nito Niederreiter and with Nikita Chibrikov. So we'll hear from Arniel in a bit about Brad Lambert's preseason and also what he's looking to see from Brad tonight. But let's not make him wait. Rolling into the program is our pal Greg Wyshynski from ESPN, as we are just days away from dropping the puck on the NHL season. Greg and our other pal Arda O'Cal have a latest edition of the Drop up right now. For all of you YouTubers, you can check it out at the NHL on ESPN page. And Wish joins us now. What's going on? How was your off season?
It was good. It was a lot of paternity leave. I took paternity leave. My wife and I had a daughter named Iris in January. And so it was the first time I've ever done the traditional Canadian insider thing of leaving your job on July 2nd and then not paying attention to hockey until like September 5th. So it was good. It was she's a delight. So I was very happy.
Well, congratulations on that. And from a hockey fan standpoint, great to have you, Arda, and the gang back to work. I mean, just kind of before we get to what's happening in the preseason right on, what were your big off-season takeaways? I mean, is there a team? I mean, Austin, listen, we only have what we have to talk about, so we kind of focus in on big free agent moves. I mean, I think about what Nashville did, which really kind of stole the show on July 1st. Is there a team or two, Wish, that you're expecting much more of than maybe you would have been at the end of June because of what they did in the offseason?
I think Utah's on that list, to be honest with you. You know, I think there's a natural anticipation that they're going to have a pretty good season based on the buzz and the hype of playing in a new market, and those guys obviously feeling better about themselves, not, trudge to Mullet Arena and be in those environs anymore. But I think for me, the Sergachev move for them gives them a better defenseman than they've had maybe since the heyday of Ekman-Larsson. Maybe even he's better than that. Ian Cole, John Marino, they really built out their blue line in a pretty impressive way to go along with what should be at least two real good young scoring lines. One anchored by Clayton Keller, one anchored by Logan Cooley. So I like what they did. I think they augmented their roster pretty well, and they did it I thought like an overreach by their owner, Ryan Smith, in any way. I think the moves made sense.
I'm really fascinated just to see, and I mean, I know we've seen some pictures of some of the seats that have some obstructed views. I mean, that is what it is, but just how that community, which has famously supported the Jazz so well for many, many years, embraces hockey. And I know you've been doing a lot of work even last year when the move happened. It does seem like this is actually a pretty good fit for the National Hockey League. And I mean, I realize they'll have some building challenges until they have a new one built. But I mean, are you high on Utah as an NHL market? And how do you think that will go both on the ice, but maybe more importantly, off the ice, considering everything that franchise has been through for the last couple decades?
I think it's going to be fine. And in fact, if you want to talk about those obstructed seats, I talked to Chris Armstrong, who's the new team president out there in Utah, at the Board of Governors meeting yesterday. And they've got a plan. You got to remember, all this stuff happened so quickly with Arizona that they had to kind of like do the best they could with what they had. So the Delta Center is obviously an arena built for basketball. They have a 3-year plan to basically add a bowl of seats, or a tier of seats at the arena that'll be specific to hockey, where you can see the entirety of the rink. They have that Barclays Center problem, if you remember, with the Islanders, where you can't see like a third of the rink depending on where your seats are. Those seats are going to be single game seats, by the way, this year. Those obstructed view seats, not like season ticket seats. But they have a plan to do some renovations in the arena and make sure that everyone has a good view of the rink within the next couple of years. And then obviously, like beyond that, the whole gambit is to get these two teams into a different arena in Salt Lake City within the next decade.
I can't help but think about 2011 here in Winnipeg, when the Atlanta Thrashers moved on relatively short notice. I mean, end of May, came here, and just how magical that season was. Again, little different. We had lost a team, so I mean, there was all that to it. But I do remember what the reaction of the players was, coming to a place where the city was crazy about them. They were a big deal. I mean, it was night and day from what their lives were like in Atlanta, albeit a little bit colder, maybe a lot colder throughout the winter. What do you think the change of scenery might be able to do just for the Coyotes, or now the Utah HC, as a squad on the ice, in addition to the moves that you kind of laid out at the beginning of the year?
Yeah, I think it's going to be huge. I actually was I was talking to Dylan Gunther the other day, who's a young forward for the Utah Hockey.
A young, very rich forward.
Yeah, signed a huge contract. I asked him if there was any luxury item he wanted to buy with that money, and he kind of reminded me, I don't have that money yet. He's still got one more year left on his current deal, so that's a fair point. But we talked about the idea of not only is it the enthusiasm of being in a different building and things turning around from the Arizona years, and you feeling better about coming to the rink and feeling better about the stability of the franchise and all those things that I think are going to put wind in the sails of these players on Utah. But there's also a sense of, you've got to be a bit of a showman. I mean, this is a new market. There are fans in this market, despite having winter sports be such a big part of their lives, that aren't necessarily hockey fans. And so on top of everything else that I think you're enthusiastic about, if you're a Utah player, you're enthusiastic about putting on a show for people, and them falling in love with hockey, falling in love with this team, getting excited to see you as you're going to pick up coffee in the morning, all that stuff that goes with really kind of energizing a market. And I think the way this team plays, it's going to be energizing anyway, because they're a good, exciting young offensive team. But all that stuff off the ice, I think, is also going to be motivation for these guys to, put a little mustard on the hot dog, so they say, try to make it a show for these fans that are coming to the arena in Utah to try to get them to buy tickets again.
While we're talking about the Central, I mean, are you buying or selling all the big moves that Barry Trotz and the Predators made in the offseason?
I'm buying. I saw Trotz at the Board of Governors too. I said, congratulations on getting Soros in before Jeremy Swayman reset the goalie market, because that situation could have been a little dicey if the sequence had been different. But I talked to Barry, I talked to their CEO, Sean Henry. Both of them are extremely excited about the prospects this season. For the Predators, it went from being a situation where they had to maybe be a little bit more aggressive in trying to sell tickets, even though they always end up selling tickets in that market, to now have people coming to them and being like, how do I get involved in this season, because of the excitement that those offseason acquisitions gave them. And again, look what you had last season with Nashville. You had Andrew Burnett coaching a pretty exciting, high-tempo type of offense, but you didn't always have the horses up front to execute and create. Well, now you've got Steven Stamkos, one of the best goal creating guys of the last 20 years in this league, who can still do it at a very high level. You have Jonathan Marchessault, who obviously energizes any line that he's on. And don't forget Brady Shea on the back, who is probably going to end up playing with Roman Josi, which is then going to free up Josi to be even more offensive than he's been in previous seasons. So I love the offseason moves. I think they come at the right time for a team that kind of showed that they had earned the chance to be augmented by all-star talent last season. And I'm pretty excited to see what they're going to end up doing in the Central.
Now, I have to ask you what you think about where the Jets are at. I mean, listen, it was a very tough playoff series. I think they sort of it was a bit of an eye-opener after the season they had. However, you can't forget about an 82-game year where they were 4th overall in the National Hockey League, the best defensive team in the league. They bring in Toffoli and Monahan. That didn't work in the playoffs. Columbus paid Monahan a big chunk for a 5-year deal. The offseason moves for the Jets almost seem like they are going to be from within. Younger players. We were just talking about Brad Lambert and Chibrikov and Salmonson back in the lineup tonight. What do you think about the Jets and their chances to, be back in the playoffs and be contending? And can the shortcomings in the playoffs the last 2 years after strong regular seasons help them be a better team when it counts? And that, of course, is in April in Game 83.
I think anytime your starting point is Connor Hellebuck, you're doing pretty good for yourself, right? I think that he can paper over a lot of deficiencies on your team. And like you, I'm excited to see the kind of leap a guy like Cole Perfetti could take. The contract being what it is, it's kind of a show me contract, and he's got an endless amount of talent. And I'm intrigued to see exactly how they deploy him and what he does this season. But at the end of the day, I'm a little concerned about the coaching change. Like, no shade to Arneal, but like I for one underestimated how important Rick Bowness was behind that bench, and I give him the lion's share of the credit for turning that team into what was like a 110-point team last year. Like, he did great. He was the right coach at the right time for this team, and certainly should be credited with the defensive advancements that they made on that roster. Maybe that carries over to a new coach, maybe it doesn't. But I certainly think they're going to take a step back, and it's just going to be a matter of how large that step is at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly the hope around here is that Arneal, being the associate coach with Bones for last season, can be a guy that, can take what really worked, continue that, and maybe add a couple tweaks, or put a player like Cole Perfetti that kind of found himself in Bones' doghouse towards the end of the season in the second half after he hit a wall, and get the most out of him. It will be interesting, and to compare the team today as to what it might look at Game 60 or at the trade deadline is also going to be really fascinating, because there is some question marks as to, can some of these young players come in, establish himself in the lineup, and remove the need to add elsewhere. So that's kind of what we're focusing on here. Listen, we talked about Hellebuck, you mentioned Saros. This Jeremy Swayman situation, right up, when was the last time we had a contract negotiation as ugly as this one has gotten and is public? I can't remember one. It does not seem very good. And to think that this started with an arbitration hearing before, maybe we shouldn't be so surprised.
Yeah, I mean, Swayman tried to kind of take that arbitration hearing and refocus his energy in a positive way after it. And by that, I mean, like, the criticisms that the Bruins laid out in that arbitration hearing, Swayman processed them and tried to turn them. He basically turned them into a checklist for himself last season of, like, here are the things that they're telling me that I can't do, or that are deficiencies in my game. And here's what I'm going to do to prove them wrong, including playing well in the playoffs, which he obviously did last year for the Bruins in that brief run. So it's an intriguing scenario, what's going on with him and the team. I don't think Cam Neely was playing 4D chess. I think he was just really perturbed and just threw a number out there to say, hey, we're offering him what we consider to be a pretty decent amount of money. But, Swayman obviously has an idea of what he's worth, and Swayman obviously has a bit of leverage as long as, the Jim Montgomery system doesn't turn Jonas Korpisalo into like a .930 save percentage goalie at the start of the season. I think once they trade away Linus Ullmark, they basically, coronate Jeremy Swayman as their starter and as the goalie of the franchise. So you have to, once you do that, you've got to ante up and give him close to what he's looking for.
What did you think Don Sweeney was thinking when he heard Cam Neely say that in front of the microphone? Because I saw the look on his face, and I think he was trying to either cut the mic because he knew that this was not going to help him in getting this done.
It won't. And Sweeney, more than maybe any other guy in this league, is extremely buttoned up on details of negotiations. So speaking at a turn like that was not good. And then obviously, like, speaking at a turn like that also gave Louis Gross, Swayman's agent, a chance to kind of like win the PR battle by saying, like, they've never offered us this number. I mean, of course, like, they've offered probably within $1 million of that number, but you can say they've never offered that number. And then trying to curry favor for his client at a time when maybe some fans are getting a little bit antsy about Swayman asking for too much money or whatever. So, you know, Neely was not a model of public relations acumen in that press conference, but I mean, he's a hot-headed guy. It's to be expected. I still think they get it done at some point, probably sooner than later. If only because I think I know the gap is pretty large between the two sides right now. You know, Swayman wants to be a Bruin, and the risk he runs is that you do get to a certain point where they feel like you've made your decision on how much you think you're worth. We're not willing to go there. And then you get traded to a place you don't want to be. So that's the leverage the Bruins have right now. And we'll see how the whole thing plays out.
I will admit, Greg, and I'll get your thoughts on this. I mean, when I heard, and again, whether it's 64 or 63 or whatever, I mean, an 8-year extension at numbers that would put him, more than UC Saros, in that Hellebuck range. I was a little surprised for a guy that, I mean, as good as he's been part of a tandem on a very good team for the last couple of years. I mean, this is not a guy that's gone out and played 60-plus games in a season, and that's a lot to hang 8 years at franchise player money on.
Yeah, I get it, but I also think that, like, if your approach to Swayman is to say, well, prove to us that you can do it, I think he's probably thinking to himself, well, I've proven a lot. I've proven that I can be somebody who is the primary starter. I've proven I can be a great playoff goaltender, which was, again, one of your biggest gripes about me when we did this contract dance a year ago. And frankly, he's got every right to try to strike when the iron's hot. That he knows what position the Bruins are in insofar as trading away Ullmark and relying on him. So he thinks he's got some leverage, and he knows where the goalie market's going. Don't forget, too, that the numbers that have been bandied about with regard to his contract, commiserates of Saros or commiserates of Vasilevsky or others, are, you have to recontextualize that under a cap that's continuing to rise. Gary Bettman said conservatively the cap's going to be $92.5 million, a year from now. I think it'll be probably even higher than that. It could be even higher than that if the players decide to escalate it. So, when he starts talking about the money that he's looking for, it has to be within the context of where NHL economics are going and where they'll be, say, like 3 years into his contract.
Wish, if this one, I'm not sure it's possible, but if it gets even more off the rails than it's at right now, are there any, like, I heard someone that was on the show today say, well, why hasn't someone offer sheeted him? Well, Boston will match, or there's significant compensation coming back when you're talking about paying a guy more than $8 million a season. If the Bruins said, you know what, we're going to go another direction, like, are there many teams that would even be possible suitors that could trade for Swayman in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, he's a good goalie and he's a young goalie, and I think that he probably has even more value than Ullmark as a tradable commodity, which is why the Bruins hung on to him. The offer sheet thing doesn't fly because it takes two to tango, and unless somebody is willing to offer sheet him for the money that he's looking for, there's no reason for him to sign an offer sheet, right? So, the idea of somebody coming in with that kind of money at this point, when their cap is probably situated as it should be at the start of the season, where every dollar is accounted for, I'm not sure who would offer sheet him. I think the trade aspect is like, you can give them some of yours, somebody off your cap, and then you take on Swayman, and then you're able to sign him. So I don't know. We'll see where it goes. I don't think it's going to come to that point because I think they'll probably figure this thing out. But but it's pretty nasty right now.
How is it playing over in Boston amongst the public? I mean, this management group has done a really good job of building teams, being competitive for a number of years. But again, this is just one of those situations that you don't see very often. I mean, is public support on one side or the other from what you're gathering, or the people are telling you in Boston?
I think it's just disappointment. I mean, I'm sure there's a number of people that are sympathetic to Swayman, and I think there's probably a number of people that think he's probably asking for too much money at this point. But I know there's a great number of people that are like, they screwed up the negotiation by not having something in place when they decided to trade Ullmark, open up that cap space, and go after Lindholm and the other people that they went after in the offseason. So, Don Sweeney was asked that question. How close were you on something with Swayman when you traded Ullmark? He, dutifully avoided answering it, so we don't know. But I think that's the prevailing thought is like, how did the Bruins get to this point where they're going to open the season without Jeremy Swayman in goal and with talking about a December 1st deadline on getting him signed, because anything after that means he won't be on the team at all this year.
Greg Wyshynski of ESPN with us. One of the other things that came out of the Board of Governors meetings was apparently talking about limiting the number of preseason games and, God forbid, adding 2 more games to the regular season. I mean, is this realistic, or is this just kind of reaction to kind of a flurry of injuries that have happened so far this preseason that continued with more fireworks between Ottawa and Montreal last night on a pretty controversial check from the Wi-Fi?
I don't think it has anything to do with the injuries. I think it has everything to do with the Board of Governors wanting to have more rivalry games on their roster. I wrote about this 2 years ago. That's kind of when the discussions about this started. There's an imbalance of games within your own division right now, and a lot of these owners want to have that extra home game of revenue that can come in when you play your fiercest rival. It's wild to think that we might expand the regular season to say like 84 games at a time when all of the other pro leagues are expanding their postseason to grab more revenue and to create more buzz. And yet Gary Bettman, as long as he's commissioner, seems steadfast and not even, allowing discussion of expanding the postseason because he feels the 16-team tournament right now is exactly where it should be. So they keep adding teams to the league. They might add games to the regular season, but God forbid we get a play-in series in this league. It's absolutely bonkers in my opinion.
I will say this: they're not going to be making any decisions that are going to be costing them money. We joke that everyone wants to win the Stanley Cup. The true goal is to crank up the HRR. And hey, listen, that's happening. And you just mentioned that cap, the pretty significant jump in the cap next year and the upcoming year, and that obviously is going to be good news for the players and certainly for some of the GMs that have been having tough decisions made right up against it for the last number of seasons.
Yeah, I mean, and again, like that was a conservative estimate, $92.5 million. It could be even higher than that. We're only a couple of seasons away from the cap hitting $100 million. It's trending again in the right direction. I think we were all very nervous around the COVID time as to what the economics of this league would be. But it's at a point, like you said, where teams will have more financial flexibility. Players can make more money on these deals, and we'll go from there.
What year will we be seeing Team 33 and 34 in the National Hockey League?
It's a good question. Like Bettman claimed they didn't talk about expansion at all at Board of Governors yesterday, and we'll take him at his word. Some of the people I've spoken to around the meetings anticipate they might open up the expansion process at the next BOG in 2025. But again, part of the math on this is how close are they to finding an owner in, say, Atlanta. There's a couple of different owners that want to bring a team there, have an arena project built around a mixed-use community. Like, there's some stuff that has to shake out before they can really be clear on where they're going with expansion. But opening up the process, I think, means you'll probably find out more about that. So, I think we're going to get another 2 teams within the next few years, and then maybe it'll be a little bit of a break to what'll ultimately be another 2 teams, because you certainly aren't going to imbalance the league for all that long with 34. You've got to get to 36 eventually.
Hey, Wish, just on our way out, I believe it was about a year to the day where we had you on the show, and I think if I recall correctly, you had the Oilers winning the Cup. You got to Game 7. Are you riding with Edmonton again this year? And who do you have in the West and the East battling for hockey's Holy Grail?
I'll take the Devils in the East. I'm still a little concerned about how all these pieces fit, but I mean, if they learn some lessons from last season, and if all of the hole plugging that Tom Fitzgerald did is as good as I think it is, they've got the talent to win the East. Out of the West, though, and winning the Cup, I have Dallas. There's so much focus on the Edmonton Oilers being the bridesmaid in the Western Conference, and I don't think I'll ever bet against Connor and Leon when they're this motivated. But a lot of good fortune befell that team. Not only in winning tight series, but also having really good health. And you never know how things are going to shake out again when you've made it that far in the cup run. I think Dallas has got that perfect mix of star players. Ben, Sagan, Duchesne, that level. You go down a level, you got Robertson, Ottinger, Heiskanen. You go down another level, you've got Wyatt Johnston, Maverick Bourque, Logan Stankoven. Like, you've got this really great mix of energetic youth and accomplished veterans, and I think it'll all come together for them this year. They've been bubbling under the surface for a couple of years, and I think they're going to break through this year.
Greg Wyshynski of ESPN, thanks so much for doing this. So, Wish, just on the way out, I mentioned the YouTube channel at NHL on ESPN, but just fill people in on all the content you and the ESPN team has heading into this weekend, and then, of course, dropping the puck in North America here next week.
Yeah, I got on the site right now on ESPN.com, I have bold predictions for the season. I've got breakthrough players. I've got the Lapsed Fans Guide coming out this Friday for those who might need a primer on what the hell happened during the summer. I know I did. And then the drop is they'll end up in your podcast feed and on YouTube on occasion. I can't tell you what the regular cadence is going to be, but I do know that we have a show on the big opening night next week that'll have full standings predictions and things like that.
Greg, thanks so much for doing this. It's always a pleasure to have you on here in the Peg. Here's to a great season. Thanks for doing this. We'll
Anytime.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me.
Good stuff. There is Greg Wyshynski. You can follow him on X at Wyshynski. And, of course, check out all his work with our pal Arda over at ESPN, ESPN.com. All right. Listen, we're going to get back to Scott O'Neill right now. And Scott Billeck's coming up in just a minute. And in just a couple minutes, we'll get to some fan feedback from you. So get ready in the chat. Remo, let's tee up number 5 here because I want to get back to Brad Lambert. He is in the lineup tonight, playing with Chibrikov and Nino Niederreiter in a non-top 6 role. Call it the third line, call it the fourth line, whatever you want. Scott O'Neill was asked just about Brad Lambert's preseason up until tonight's game.
I like a lot of them that I have seen in the last couple of years. His year-to-year growth has been very noticeable. He took major strides last year, his season with the Moose, and then coming in here, he knew what he's going up against. He knew that that if he had to be at his best here and show us what he can do. And his biggest challenge is what him and I talk about is that how he goes along and how he lines up against, if it's Scheifele in a practice in a 5-on-5 drill, it's against a Lowry, because those are the guys he's going to see, those type of skill sets, those type of experience. And he's been like all the young guys, they've been really good in camp, grasping on to what we're trying to get them to do. Mistakes are made, but then it's what you do next. Do you come back and repeat that mistake? And that's where I've been impressed with a lot of our young guys. Whether it's happened in a game or in practice, we've told them, okay, this is what you need to do in this situation, and you don't see the repetitive mistakes maybe the young guy would do on a consistent basis. So, and Lambo's right in that mix there. He's shown tremendous growth there on where he's been and where he is now.
Will he play on Friday as well?
I'm not. I don't see. No, I'm not sure yet. We'll just kind of play it. He'll be. I think this is number. Is this number 5? 4. This is 4. So I'll see. I'm not sure where we're at.
All right. Yeah. Well, don't worry about tomorrow. Tonight, it's about this preseason game against the Calgary Flames. Brad Lambert in. I want to hit you with the why not question of the day for not Autocorp, but Waverly and McGillivray right now. Where do you think the best place for Brad Lambert to begin the season? Is it the Moose? Is it playing like he is in tonight in a bottom six role to begin time in the National Hockey League, potentially a fourth line role, or again, call the Lowry line a 2-3. This would be a 3-4. Or is it in between Perfetti and Ehlers right out of the gate as the number 2C? Give us your thoughts right now. We'll get to fan feedback for fansfirst.ca in just a couple of minutes. Here's Arniel on what he wants to see from Brad tonight in this game against the Flames.
Just consistency. I know what he can do with the puck, and it's just, again, it's how he plays. He's got a little different look tonight. He's got Nino there and Chibi there. He's got some. The reason why is because him and Chibi have some sort of history together, and then putting a veteran guy like Nino that's going to get to the net, that's going to kind of, whether, maybe defensively be there to help them. It's just a chance to kind of get him out there, and whoever he lines up against for Calgary tonight, he's got to win his battles, he's got to win his shifts, and that's just stuff to continue. He knows that he has to continue just to do game in, practice in every day that he's here.
All right, so there's Scott Arniel on Brad Lambert. Again, Moose, bottom six role with the Jets, number 2 center. Remis has got a poll right now, but also give us your thoughts in the chat right now. We'll get to your feedback in just a minute in the Fans First segment. Couple other bits from Arniel today on a couple players that we haven't talked a lot about. Dylan Coghlan came over in the offseason. He's in the lineup tonight, playing on the right side with the other newcomer, Hayden Fleury. Here's what Arniel had to say about Dylan Coghlan so far.
Yeah, not really knowing Dylan other than coaching against him, seeing a little bit on some opposition. He's got, good range, good mobility. He's got a big shot, another guy that can shoot the puck. We'll get a real good look at him tonight as well. He'll be on that power play, the second power play. So it just for, again, he was playing with some younger guys early or sort of younger lineups early. Now he'll be out there with, pretty good lineup that's coming tonight. So just get a feel for him, see him under live action, and I think he's been good. I think he's been consistent. A lot of what I thought he was, he's come out and he's played to his sort of his level.
Arnie on Dylan Coghlan, who, as he mentioned, is going to be the lone blue liner on the second power play unit tonight. The one other guy that Arniel spoke on today was Simon Lundmark, who's going to be playing with Elias Salmonson tonight on the third pairing. And has apparently had a pretty strong camp to still be around here after playing with the Moose last year. Here's what Arnie had to say on Simon Lundmark, who will be in the lineup tonight.
Lundy had a good camp for us last year. I don't know if he got into a game or not, but he got hurt at the start of camp here. He just at the very beginning, he got hurt. Nothing that was, it was just knocked him off a couple of days. So, he's been a guy. He's another guy that has to go through waivers. A guy we want to get a look at. We want to get a feel. He gets a chance to play. I would say that the Hanola, Stanley injuries have helped that. But at the end of the day, he's also showed us that he can play both sides. He can play left side as well, which is obviously a bonus. And he's a young defenseman that's, I think, has gotten better every year I've seen him.
All right, so there is Jets head coach Scott Arniel. We asked you about Brad Lambert and where you think the best place for him is at the start of the season. And let's now hear from you on our fan feedback segment for fansfirst.ca. Fan feedback's brought to you by fansfirst.ca, your best option for buying and selling tickets with no added fees. What you see is what you pay. Also, one of the best places that you can sell tickets on the resale market. I can tell you, as a season ticket holder and using it in the past, and both for buying and selling, it is it's the simplest. First of all, when you're buying, you see the price. That's what's going in on your card. No exorbitant aftermarket charges that tick everybody off. And from a selling standpoint, you can list them. You know exactly what you're getting back for them based on what your list price is. And if they're not selling, you can very simply go in, adjust the price to move them quicker. Fansfirst.ca. Make it your number one spot for the resale market for Winnipeg hockey tickets. Let's get to your feedback for the Fans First segment. And Kevin Kowalik said 100% if the Jets give him the leash to play 2C for an extended period, likely that's best long term, although they should have done the same for Perfetti or Velarde. I mean, the problem is that the NHL isn't a developmental league. I mean, it's a winning league. And I mean, you can throw, young guys out there that, might not technically be ready and they can learn some real hard lessons. I mean, if you go 3-17 in those games, someone's getting fired or someone potentially could be losing your job. So that is what it is. A comment saying, I know it never happens, though, but a fourth line that plays 10 minutes a game can be very well impactful. BA says, Moose, Lambert will get killed by the NHL number 2 centers right now. Let's see. Phyllis, I want Lambeau to have play time with the Jets. Wherever he slots in is fine. Just keep him with the big club. Derek Schmidt says the best place long-term is to start with the Moose. Spency, 2C for about 25 games, then fourth line, then bench. Best spot for Lambeau, LOL. I think more likely it's the other way around. I mean, if you ask me, and I'm a fan of Brad, I think it's important that they get a little bit more youth into the lineup. I see this lineup that Scott O'Neill's put together. And I mean, if Brad can be, for instance, centering a fourth line that, doesn't play 4 or 5 minutes a night, that gets 8, 9, potentially 10 minutes a night, playing with a solid veteran core of whether it's an Iafallo, whether it's a Niederreiter, I think that insulates him. I think that's going to give him a great opportunity to, learn when the real bullets are flying in NHL regular season action, which is still different than the NHL preseason, but also keep him around in practice every day with this team, going up against the likes, as Arnie said, of Scheifele and Lowry in practice. And then inevitably, when someone gets nicked up or hurt, he's a guy that could pop up, whether it be on the wing or in the middle, a little earlier on, but I think he'd be more ready for that right now. That's where my take is at right now. Keep your comments coming. Here is the thing. Yours truly, can we end the discussion that the NHL isn't a developmental league? Every young player struggles early and need time playing to adapt to further develop. Well, I mean, that is kind of true, but not really. I mean, players do need to develop, but I mean, if guys aren't ready for the NHL, you don't just put them in the NHL. I mean, there's a lot of 18-year-old players that are coming, that are drafted, that are going to be great NHLers. You don't just throw them into the lineup. It can actually be a negative for many of them. That's why I love kind of where this seems to be going right now. With Lambert playing with NHLers and in the lineup, but maybe not with everything that comes with the 2C job. We saw what happened with Cole Perfetti last year. It lasted 3 games, and it wasn't pretty. And, then he kind of got going, and unfortunately hit the wall later on in the season. We'll talk about Perfetti coming up with Scott Billeck as well. Great stuff from all of you in the chat. Fan feedback brought to you by fansfirst.ca, your number one spot for buying and selling tickets here in Winnipeg. Is a daily segment now throughout the season here on WST. And again, fansfirst.ca for both buying and selling tickets if you need it. Check it out. I've been using it for about 3 years, and it is my only spot to go to when I need either of those two options. All right, Billeck's coming up right away. We will get to a little bit of Bomber talk later on, and plenty of it today in CFL 110 with Jeff Hamilton. Of course, all of our Bomber talk on this show is brought to you by Princess Auto, proud sponsors of the Blue and Gold and Winnipeg Sports Talk, and of course, the home of your Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Princess Auto Stadium, which is amazingly, trending towards another sellout for this next game, although the Bombers are on the road this week against the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Princess Auto, also headquartered and founded right here in Winnipeg. Such a big part of our community with 2 locations on Panet Road and Portage Avenue West, featuring the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete your projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Pop by and see them in store today or shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. I know at Princess Auto Stadium they'll be restocking the Canadian club supplies for that next game because Bomber fans have been enjoying their fair share of Canada's favorite Canadian whiskey at Bomber games this year. Of course, Canadian Club is the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, available throughout the stadium on game days. And the entire family of Canadian Club spirits are available waiting for you at your local Manitoba liquor marts, along with CC and Ginger, pre-mixed cocktails in cans. You can grab those as well at your local Manitoba liquor marts. For those of you that have needs in the fencing game or potentially a new overhead garage door, how about you give our friends at Wallace & Wallace a call? The fencing and overhead door specialists since 1946. If your property needs the security and protection of a new fence, or if you need to replace your garage door, they've got you covered. The biggest and best selection of fencing and the largest selection of overhead garage doors in town, one perfectly suited to fit your home and add value to your home. Give Wallace & Wallace a call, 452-2700. Their team will arrange a time to come out and give you a free estimate. You can also visit them at wallacefences.com or pop down to their showroom on Lawson Crescent off of Kenaston. And hey, I know it's been nice outside. The leaves are changing. The seasons are changing. Guys, heading into fall and winter, if you need to up your menswear game, there's only one place you need to go, and that's F Apparel, 190 Smith Street downtown. Custom suits beginning at $400, along with chinos, golf pants, amazing custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles for a variety of occasions, and the biggest and best selection of menswear accessories in town. If you're having a wedding or in a wedding party in the coming year, make sure to talk to the guys at F about a 15% discount for the wedding party when you get your suits for the big day at F Apparel. Pop by and see them in person, 190 Smith Street downtown. Find out more online at FEPHapparel.com. You can book a fitting as well right there. All right, let's welcome in Scotty Billeck right now, the Winnipeg Sun, who joins us ahead of this final home game for the Winnipeg Jets in the preseason. Billeck, what's going on, man? How are you?
Yeah, it's going, dude. I was looking. It's funny. I mean, I don't know. I was looking at Facebook Marketplace. I'm always looking for golf clubs at the end of the year to see if I can upgrade my apparel. And I always find it funny because at the end of the year, there's always like a bunch of these golf clubs on here. People have ads, and it's just random golf clubs, and they all look they've been in the bottom of a lake, and just reminds me of a time where I used to toss my clubs around willy-nilly because I get too pissed off playing the stupid game. So I've had to not do that as much because they're quite expensive now, and I have no disposable income.
Yeah,
so
you can't be crushing those things in the lake. That is for sure. But that's a shrewd. Yeah. I mean, that's a shrewd Winnipeg deal hunting maneuver. Facebook Marketplace for golf clubs at the beginning of October.
Winnipeg, without saying you're from Winnipeg, right? Yeah.
Hey, let's get to the latest with the Jets. And I was just putting this out in our fan feedback segment. It was a really interesting diversion of opinions. Well, here's what Remis put up a poll, and here's where the poll is. Where's the best place for Brad Lambert to begin the season? Is it the number one center on the Manitoba Moose? That's 37%. Bottom six role with the Jets, 42%. Number two center, 22%. So, I mean, varied responses. I mean, compelling arguments for all three. Based on what you've seen so far, the rest of the team, their expectations for this year, what do you think?
If they do it the way that it is going to look in tonight's game, and I mean, obviously that fourth line tonight is not going to look like the fourth line with the Jets, but I like that idea. I like so this team. If we go back to the playoffs last year, let's just use that 5-game sample there. This team tried to run 2 scoring lines and 2 checking lines, and we saw how it worked out. It didn't, right? I mean, there's way too much pressure on the top 2 lines to score. And that's nothing. I mean, the whole quote, pressure creates diamonds or whatever, right? But you need secondary scoring in this league. And this Jets team, whether it likes it or not, needs to have at least 3 scoring lines. And I propose, and I wrote about it yesterday, I think that if you put Brad Lambert in between Nino Niederreiter and whoever on the right side there, I mean, tonight it'll be Alex Iafallo, I think you're creating a team. Sorry, Chippercroft tonight. Sorry, but I think again, as a look ahead, and we'll see. I don't. Well, that's a side tangent. I'm not sure Chippercroft is going to make the team. I think he should, but it's anyway. I think if you have three lines that can score, and Lambert can be sort of a 2B center on this team, and that line's sort of a 2B, and then you still have your third line of Adam Lowry, Morgan Barron, and I'm going to guess Mason Appleton, because that usually is the line that they like to go with, if not Niederreiter. I think there's good potential in that. I mean, if you look at Barron's numbers, Lowry's numbers, and Appleton's numbers last year, I think they combined for, did the math yesterday, something like 37 goals. Like that's good third sort of tier scoring on a team. And if you can have three lines that can score with Lambert as your sort of 2B center, and I'm not saying this is taking minutes away from Adam Lowry, because that's not what it's going to do, but what it allows you to do is sort of spread out some of the minutes, spread out some of the scoring, and certainly create a lot of matchup headaches for other teams that aren't able to sort of do that. So I like the idea of Brad Lambert starting in a bottom six role, but being sort of a 2B center to that second line, and then you can kind of work with that way. I don't think he's too good for the Moose now, right? But I think you can find a spot on this team where you put him into a situation where you're not playing him fourth line minutes, as you were saying kind of earlier, where it's not just 4 or 5 minutes a night, but you can play that line 10, 12 minutes a night, get them out against good matchups, have the two wingers kind of grind out pucks, win pucks, and have Lambert there as your scoring threat. I think this team has tried to find that time and time again, but they just really haven't had sort of the skill set to have that sort of thing. And so I like the idea of what Scott O'Neill was trying yesterday in practice, which he sort of alluded to, and he's keeping his cards close to his chest, but we're sort of seeing what he's trying to do here. And to me, that's a philosophy change on this team, right? Like, I think that's what would change the way that this team approaches its offense, and having those lines. And I think at the end of the day, what you create is a team that all four lines can score goals, right? You're going to get, your 30s and 40s from the top line. Ehlers and Nemestikov, they're probably going to get you in that 20 range. Perfetti, same thing, maybe 30 on a really good year high end. And then that third line, I mean, you could have 20s across the board there if they play enough, right? And then you look at the fourth line, like you're getting a lot. One of the things the Jets were really good at last year, Huss, they were fifth in 5-on-5 goals, 478 in 5-on-5 goals. There was only 22 goals behind, I believe it was either the Oilers or Tampa, that were first last year in 5-on-5 goal scoring. So they had good offense, right? But I think you can have more offense and still play a defensive game, because everybody around Brad Lambert and in the other lines is defensively responsible. So you're not giving up anything to go searching for more offense. And I like the idea of that. And I like the idea of Brad Lambert starting in that role to start the year with the Jets.
Well, and I think, listen, I think we're making a lot of the offense, but I think what the most important thing for Brad Lambert is going to be to get to establish himself in the NHL is going to be able to play defense. Listen, there's tons of guys that have the offensive chops to play in the NHL that don't make it because they end up being too much of a liability. And
100%.
And I mean, like, you go to any AHL team and there's a guy that if you really need it, you could put him in your lineup, probably in your top 6 for 8 or 10 games, and they would probably score, they would probably produce. But on the big scale, the coaches don't trust them enough, and there are other players that'll go in and play a much more well-rounded game. And this is why I think what Arneal is doing right now, at least in the preseason, and I am hopeful that it continues through, is setting this young man up for success. If you put him on a line, if he has a guy like Nito Niederreiter or an Alex Iafallo on them, I mean, you're talking about guys that are defensively responsible, that do have the ability to score, particularly Nino, who's pretty much an automatic 20-goal scorer. And I don't know, I mean, unless their ice time drops significantly, I don't know you lose a lot in the production from a Niederreiter like that. And I think, frankly, it sets him up to get used to the NHL, to understand what is expected of him. And the other reason that I love having him on the team in that role is that I like down the road, best case scenario is that he grows into a guy that you can trust out there, that can produce and can play against top lines on the other team. Well, if he's in the roster and he's on that spot, depending on the game scenarios, you can switch Nemetsnikov and Brad Lambert and give him a few shifts with those guys. I think that is the way. I think that is the path to set him up for success and not at the expense of the team as well.
And so this is one of these rare occasions where I think this guy can develop in the NHL. And I know you said this is not a developmental league. And for the most part, I agree with that. But I think there's some guys that have enough skill and enough wherewithal to develop in the league, and you can insulate him with good players to help him do that, where you can do that. And I believe this is a case for it, right? Because, and we should give credit to Brad Lambert because it's not like his defense is bad. Like last year, not great, right? It wasn't good. What we saw most from him was the razzle-dazzle last year, the skill, the high-end skill. He can do all those things, right? This year, I would argue you haven't seen as much as that. But but it's not because he doesn't have that. It's because he's trying to be more responsible defensively. And everything he learned under Mark Morrison and Manitoba Moose last year, doing that, playing that role consistently night in and out, it's ingrained in him now. He talked about it this morning after the skate, after the pregame skate. He goes out of his way to say, I like offense, but I need to play better defensively. So it's in his head now. Like that's how he has to play. He learned that last year. And I would suggest in this preseason, that's where his best part of his game has become. We haven't seen, we saw the shot, we've seen a couple of the goals so far, but we haven't seen, he hasn't been trying to do a lot of the careless stuff, right? The trying to take on three guys, lose the puck, all that stuff, right? He's being responsible. He's getting back. He's battling for pucks. He's using the 8 pounds that he put on him over the summer to his benefit to help this team win. And so I think Brad Lambert right now is that guy that you can develop in the NHL because he's already got a baseline there that's NHL ready. And from there, you put him in good situations, you sort of, quote unquote, shelter him. But you're putting him in a situation where they can exploit his strengths and minimize his weaknesses. Let's say if defensively is, he still needs to develop there. I think that with Nino and whoever else that they put there, whether it's Iafallo, they could put any type of player there. Both of those guys, whoever is on his side, will work. And I think that's the problem with having him as a second-line center between Ehlers and Perfetti, is that you lose enough defense. And until Brad Lambert can show consistently that he can do that against top-tier lineups, you keep Nemestikov there. But as you said, I think in certain matchups, or whether it's just Brad's progression as a player moving forward throughout the season, you could see that opportunity where you could switch those guys around. And again, you go back to that. So I like the idea of it. I think they need Lambert to play in that role. I think if this team wants to change the way that it wants to put offense on the ice and add more offense to a team that's already very good defensively, I think that's the way so far. And I think Scott Arniel has sort of shown us, without saying it, this is what he wants to see. Brad's got a good job. He's got an opportunity tonight to show it now. It's not set in stone yet, but I think he likes Lambert enough to use him in those spots and look at him in those spots. I think that bodes well for Brad Lambert's chances of making this team.
Yeah. Now, the other guy up front that we've been talking a lot about that I know has a lot of fans is Nikita Chibrikov. And Chibrikov's a different sort of a player. He's got some bite to his game, not particularly big at 5'9", 160, and probably a guy that probably projects to be more of a bottom six player than a top six player in the NHL. If anything, I think this, and despite the fact that he's going to be playing with he and Niederreiter tonight, I have a hard time imagining them starting the season with two rookies on the same line. The only other place that you would, and I know there's been some people that were saying, oh, they'd love to see him on Lowry's wing. I get that it would be neat to kind of see that. like Chibrikov was playing a pretty big role with the Manitoba Moose and scored 17 goals last year in 70 games. I know we were talking about Appleton yesterday, and I mean, for the people that some fans and some detractors, he was still able to put up 14 in the NHL, albeit playing big minutes. I mean, that line did play a lot.
Yeah.
But I do wonder whether Chibrikov isn't more likely a guy that is maybe the first call up from the Moose when they need a player to come in, but continues to play more in Manitoba getting ready for it. I mean, where are you on Chibrikov? I know you mentioned you'd like to see him on the team. At whose expense and where would he fit?
Well, and that's the problem, Hust, right? I mean, I think the problem with this team right now, I mean, for Chibrikov is that it's healthy, right? Like on forward, there's health there. And so you're looking at a guy who I think can play a really good fourth line role. I think he can play a really good third line role. I just don't know where he's going right now unless this team was to make a move. And I like what he brings to the game. I like the tenacity. I like his menacing capabilities. I like that he can score. I like that he can play in the power play. Like, this guy's got a lot of attributes about him that make him good. I just don't know where he fits at the moment, because you're paying Alex Iafallo $4 million right now, and you're going to put him, unless you trade Alex Iafallo. And I just don't know if they're going to do that, because I think they like what Iafallo brings to the team. And if he's going to be playing potentially, I call it a 2B, whatever you want to call it, a fourth line, we can call it whatever we want. But I mean, if you're trying to develop Brad Lambert and you're going to use Alex Iafallo in that spot, as practice sort of showed yesterday, I think it's worth the money to invest in Brad Lambert in that way. And you're right. I mean, I think, and we still haven't even talked about Elias Solomonson yet, because he's getting another chance tonight. I really don't know where that one's a really tricky one to kind of gauge right now. But then you're looking at, potentially 3 rookies in a team that's trying to win now. Right. And so it's certainly interesting. And I really like Chibrikov. I like what he brings to the table, right? But I just don't know if the space is there for him right now, because you have established NHLers, and I think Chibrikov can do it. I do wonder, though, what point does his ability to be effective, especially as a bit of a menace, it takes a lot of work every night, and I really appreciate that kid's ability to do that, want to do that at his size and all that. But we saw with Cole Perfetti last year, I mean, playing that type, well, not even playing that type of way, but just, being in your first season in the NHL, it takes a lot. And you might have to deal with that a little bit with Brad Lambert too, right? Just the wear and tear playing, it's a different level of a game to play. And so I sort of agree with you at this point, because I don't think the Jets are willing to move anybody to make it happen. So, I think it's unfortunate, because I'd like to see Chibrikov. I think he brings a lot to this team that potentially they don't really have in that bottom 6 at the moment. But because Alex Iafallo is a UFA at the end of this season, all that, I think Chibrikov's time is probably next year. He gets another year in the AHL to kind of hone his craft. It's unfortunate, but it's just the way that it goes, right? This team only has so much room, and they have to, these are the tough decisions, because I think Chibrikov deserves a little bit of runway here, but I just don't know if he gets it.
Well, listen, I think it's going to happen. I just don't think it's going to happen in game 1. And
right. Yeah.
And listen, I mean, Iafallo, Appleton, Ehlers, I mean, there's some pretty important players on this team that have expiring contracts, and there's no guarantee that I think I can safely say that they won't all be back. They'll make a decision, and it's in a different category than those others. Also leaves a massive hole if he's not re-signed. It doesn't stick around with the club. But the way I see Chibrikov going, as I see him probably starting the season with the Moose, I think he gets called up as the first guy when they need him. I guess depending on these other guys and what role the player's coming out. I mean, we'll see what happens with Shaw and Anderson Dolan. I mean, if all those guys clear and they're all there, depending on the role, maybe there's a better fit. But for the most part, I think Chibrikov will be a guy that they'll want to call up at some point, that they'll want to get into some games. And, maybe for him, he plays, depending on the health of the team, somewhere between 15 and 20, 25 games. But when we're having this conversation 1 year from today, we're talking about a guy that is on the roster, and we're talking about where he fits. Is he on the third line? Is he a fourth liner right now where he plays? I think that's the most likely thing to happen, but I'll tell you what, he's got another chance to get out there against some NHL competition tonight at least, and show the coaching staff that that was the challenge for all those guys, to give these coaches and management a really, really tough decision when it comes to making that final roster. And I think all three of them, including Elias Salomonsson, has done that as well. Now, Salomonsson yesterday was playing on the left side with Colin Miller. Miller's not in the lineup tonight, and neither are Pionk or Sandberg. And he's playing on the left side with Simon Lundmark. It's been very clear how impressive he's been to the coaches. And I mean, Scott, when you hear coaches speak about young players, a lot of times they're trying to be a little reserved because, frankly, they don't want to get people like us and people like everyone that's in the chat right now all fired up and, maybe raising expectations, and I get that. He's doing that himself with his play, and he'll have another opportunity to do this right here. It's a unique situation because of the injuries to Ville Heinola and to Logan Stanley. You've got some players that were also high picks. I mean, Hayden Fleury was 7th overall, is a left side defenseman. And then obviously Dylan Coghlan, who's also on the right side, that's going to get a chance to show what he can do on the power play tonight. I guess we'll kind of focus in on Elias, but where do you see him being next week? And what does that mean for the opening day roster of the Winnipeg Jets? Or has he done enough to say, hey, I'm going to stick around and they're going to give me a few games at the start of the year?
I mean, I think that's where it might be. It's really hard to gauge this one, Huss, because this flies in the face of everything this team does with its young defensemen, right? This guy, I mean, first of all, very few guys come from Europe, never playing really any action at all on North American ice, and make the NHL in their first season. And I was looking it up yesterday. I mean, there's guys, right? We're talking Moritz Seider, we're talking Miro Heiskanen, right? Like guys who were top 10 draft picks. Heiskanen top 3, came from the Finnish Elite League and whatever, right? So fair enough. Elias Salomonson's a second-round pick, and a lot of people say, "Oh, he was a first-round pick." The Jets got him just in the second round, whatever. But it's a huge step. This is a massive step. Like you're going from bigger ice surface, completely different game, to more compact ice surface, completely different game, and trying to make that step. But here's Elias Salomonsson with three days left in camp, technically, right? I mean, Friday's the last day of training camp. They play that game. That's it. They get Saturday, Sunday off, and Monday is the first day of the regular season. Here's Elias Salomonsson now being tried in a role. I mean, I guess you want to take a look at him there, but if you're the eternal optimist, you're sitting there thinking, okay, well, he's got a good chance as anybody else trying for that role, including Hayden Fleury, including Dylan Coghlan, those guys. But Dylan Coughlin's not a left shot guy on the left side. Either is Elias Salomonsson, but I think they're trying him there because Scott Arniel really likes Elias Salomonsson, right? And I think he wants him to play. I think he's putting him in every situation to give Kevin Cheveldayoff the biggest headache that he can, because I think he wants him to play. Now, I just don't know if it happens. I think you give him a few games. It's going to, and this is the thing, he's passed a lot of the tests. Arniel was very happy with him after that Minnesota game. The team gave up 8 goals, but he was very happy with the way that Elias played. And so I'm sitting here and I don't know. And every part of me, having covered this team for a decade now, every part of me says there's not a chance, right? I mean, they're doing this, play him up here. Give him this time because it's more beneficial than him just going to the Moose right now. give him some games. Those are beneficial for him, right? Keep dangling the carrot, all that sort of thing. But there's part of me that's looking at him and like, Scott O'Neill really likes him. He wants him on in his defense, and now he's trying to see if he can play that left side because they have 2 injuries that are going to be out for a month. And here's a chance to play him, 9 games, basically the first month of the season, and see where he goes. But Hayden Fleury has played really well in this preseason. I like the goal that he created, Mason Appleton's goal against Mini, that he showed great mobility to go around the right side there, dish a puck in front to a guy crashing the crease. Those are the types of things that you would like to see, from that third pairing. I'm sort of dancing on a knife edge here. I think that Elias Salamonson has a shot. I really do. I think there's a shot there for him. He's in with a chance, as the English would say, to play on opening night. I think they know exactly what they have in Hayden Fleury. If it doesn't work with the Salamonson, it's easy enough to send him back, get him those minutes, all that top-tier time that you would want in the NHL. But I don't really see the harm early on in trying him there and seeing how he does, because we know that there's a bit of a switch flip come October 9th, right? And you're going to see it in these next 2 games. Elias Salamonson could have a tough time in these next 2 games, but I bet you he's getting both of them. And unless he has a really tough game tonight.
I would have loved to have seen him, and maybe we will see it. And you know what? I think the game on Friday will be a major harbinger of what is to come. If we see him playing the left side with Colin Miller in that game, then I think it's game on for next week. I do have time for the argument that, and listen, I'll make this. I mean, if he's on the team, I think you want to see him get into some games. I mean, it does nobody any good to have him be the 7th defenseman and be out of the lineup.
Yeah.
And I think, considering this is not a guy that's been with the Moose for the last 2 years. I mean, he's been in Europe. He's been playing with men. He's been doing very well. But he still hasn't played a regular season game here in North America. And I also have time for the argument that, a month, 6 weeks in the American Hockey League to kind of get your feet wet and, get comfortable with the ice. But on the other side of that, to your point, he has been doing that throughout training camp, has continued to show well. And it's quite clear that he's turned heads within the coaching staff, I assume management as well. And maybe he is that guy. And what complicates this all? This would be a much easier decision if Stanley and Billy Halo were healthy.
Yeah.
But they're not.
Yeah.
And I will point at Josh Morrissey as the perfect example of a guy that was going to be heading to the Moose, and a couple injuries happened earlier. He got into the lineup, and he never looked back. So, I mean, that's another really intriguing part of this game tonight, Friday's preseason finale, and then the decision that this team is going to need to go. I will say this, for a young guy, if the thought of, okay, kid, you've made the NHL, you're in our opening night lineup, and the first time you go out there, the other team has the last change, and you see 97 coming on, you see 29 coming on. I mean, but hey, like we've said, I mean, you got to learn that at some point, and he's shown that he's ready, and he's done himself a real service, I think, in putting himself legitimately in the mix right now. Here as we get in. Hey, listen, before we go, I want to pivot over from the hockey team to the football team. I mean, what a performance on Friday night. I watched that game in Montreal. I just could not. I mean, I can believe it because we've seen that before from the Bombers, but this offense has not looked like that at any point this season, Scott. And it really sort of feels like the Bombers got out all of their bad play, all of their bad luck, all of any negatives in those first 8 games of the season. And you fast forward to right now, something that didn't even seem possible to be discussing is a reality. They can clinch the West this week if they win and the and the Edmonton Elks win. But just thoughts on what we saw for the Bombers on Friday night and where this team is right now and how they're trending into the most important time of the year on the verge of booking that West Final for Princess Auto Stadium in the middle of November.
I mean, I think you saw what the Bombers can truly be, right? I don't care about the 20 points that the Elks put on the board in the second half. None of that really matters. The true test of the Bombers or the true look of the Bombers is what we saw in that first half, and it was absolutely dominant. Sitting there, and you're just like, holy crap! Like I mean, I remember I'm watching the game from the press box, and you're like, Kenny Lawler's making ridiculous Kenny Lawler catches again. Brady is running. Zach is on the run and throwing, pinpoint passes again. Right? It all seemed to come together for this team, and this season, and having been around as much as I have, there's been so much adversity against this team. You could feel it really early on in the year in that room, talking to the guys, talking to that, but not, you don't always believe guys when they talk about, oh yeah, we kept the faith and we kept all that. When you're 0-4 and 2-6 and all that stuff, you're like, oh, come on, right? Like, I mean, reality's setting in. Maybe this team's getting older. Maybe just the injuries just mounted up and there was too many of them, right? I don't know if you ever doubted this Bombers team could do what they've done so far and winning 7 straight games and having the one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the league now, and that offense finally coming around after getting some of the guys back and really starting to work in some of the newer guys, the Carrick Wheatfalls, the Ontario Wilsons, even Kelvin Clercius, right? Like they've taken a season, they've developed some of these kind of rookie receivers into bona fide threats now. They've gotten some guys back. Yeah, they don't have Dalton Schoen, but they don't, I'm not saying they don't need Dalton Schoen. I'm saying that they've learned and figured out a way to do it. And now when you see all these weapons, right, whether it's Wheatfall going along and Zach finding him way downfield, Nick Dembski over the middle, and Kenny Lawler, like it's come together. And so what you're seeing, in my opinion, is a team that is really peaking at the right time. This isn't your 10-0 Bombers halfway through the season this time. This is a really battle-tested Bombers team that has come through a lot, has not fragmented or fractured in the room at all, and is now looking forward. And I said it in the press box the other day during the game. I'm like, this team's unbeatable if that offense is working that way. Like, who's beating that team? Because it's touchdown after touchdown after touchdown, and it's defense taking the ball away or just stymieing drives, right? To me, it's an unbeatable team when they're playing like that on offense and that defense plays as well as it has been. Who beats them? I don't know. And so, yeah, you clinch that spot. Now you get a little bit more rest, but this team's going to keep it up. If not, but if they can clinch that West final, BC's not looking like the team that you thought they might be with Nathan Rourke back under center. And I don't know. I mean, I think you're looking at a 5th straight Grey Cup trip to the Grey Cup, right? At this point, the way that this team is playing, if this team can continue this trajectory, they know they have unfinished business to do. And that was one of the things, like, they didn't, there wasn't really, I mean, they had motivation to come back from 0-4, but they had motivation to get rid of the taste that they've had in their mouths over the last 2 Grey Cups. And so you're seeing a team here that's really coming together. And if they keep it up, and this is truly what this offense can do, and they can do it again next week and the week after, just to really show it, good luck beating the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
Well, I am, and listen, I concur with everything that you've said. I mean, this team it's really exactly what you want them to be doing, peaking at the right time, taking care of business, taking out, I mean, like this sweep of Edmonton. And think about this. Now this season, after that brutal start, they've swept a home and home against BC. They've swept a home and home against Saskatchewan, and now they swept a home and home against Edmonton, who was the other best and hottest team going into that series. They have absolutely proved themselves against the West. Again, you still have to win that game, presumably at home, as long as they finish the job and get that there. The record against the East has not been as good, and I bring that up because they're going to Hamilton this weekend, and the Hamilton Tiger Cats are a team that has owned Winnipeg in Hamilton. Jeff and I were talking this. He went all the way back to 2017, I believe, where the Bombers just haven't won there in the regular season. Now, they did win in the Grey Cup against Hamilton, and that one will count more than all of those regular seasons together. But Hamilton, all of a sudden, has won 4 in a row, couple massive wins in the last couple weeks, coming back to beat BC, beating the Argos the way they did, and playing for their lives. I kind of thought the really intriguing game on the rest of the Bombers' schedule was going to be these 2 games against Edmonton. I'm now thinking it's this week. And knowing that the Bombers, while they have maybe earned themselves a little wiggle room, this is a team that does not want to take the foot off the gas. But they're going up against a team that all of a sudden I think believes in themselves. And as great as Zach Collaros looked last week, BLM has looked pretty damn good himself now that those picks have come down, and he's leading the league in every passing category as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting week because you're exactly right. I mean, Hamilton has it all to play for. They sort of knew that they needed to sort of win out, right, to have a chance. Now this chance is looking better than just a chance. Who knows about the crossover? We'll see, because the West isn't really doing a lot of good. I'm interested in how the Bombers respond to this challenge. But having said that, Huss, I mean, Edmonton Elks came in really hot in the first game that they played against each other, right? I mean, Edmonton and the Bombers completely sucked the wind out of those sails. So it'll be interesting. Bo Levi Mitchell has looked great, right? I think. I don't know I have no idea who the MOP is this year. I still think it's probably up for grabs. I think Brady, after that run on Friday night, put himself again sort of in that conversation. He's got 3 touchdowns now. I know he's probably got to get a few more to get in there, but Brady's been unbelievable. But Bo Levi is up there now. And if Bo Levi can lead this team into the playoffs, I mean, it's hard. But you're right. I mean, these are intriguing games. I think the Bombers need to I don't even know if they need to prove to themselves at all. I think they just need to get a good win against an Eastern team. I think all of that losing happened early on in the year. And if you look at it, all those games that they lost against the East weren't very, they never got blown out. And that's one thing you can say about the Bombers all season. They've never been blown out. So it'll be interesting to what they see. I mean, this is another test for this team, another thing for them to overcome. I just think if the Bombers come in and play the game that they played against Edmonton, they're unbeatable. I really believe that because we've seen it, right? I mean, we've seen how good this team can be with just their defense working, and they've won games just with their defense, right? With that offense going, it's intriguing for sure, 100%. I think it's going to be a great game, but I think the Bombers can start imposing their will at this point, and I think there's a lot of momentum and a lot of confidence coming from that last game on how well this offense played.
Oh, listen, this entire run has basically been that. And great message from Tristan Rivers Music in the chat. Bombers keep facing whoever is the hottest team at the moment, and they take care of business. No shock. Hamilton is the hottest team now. Bombers just need to keep on rolling. And you mentioned, and we're going to get to the cool bet lines in a minute, but I always like to look. When we're talking about people are saying, oh, who's going to win the MOP? The best place to look if you want real chance and odds is the people that are taking money on it. And get this, Scotty. A week ago on Monday in the lock shop in Winnipeg Sports Talk, we were pulling up. We finally had the updated MOP odds. And Brady Oliveira last Monday was 14-1. And Cody Fajardo was like a minus 400 favorite or something like that. Like it was Fajardo and then everybody else. And Brady's number was 14-1. Bo Levi Mitchell was 25-1. After last week, Brady's number went from 14-1 to plus 140. And Bo's down to 10-1. So certainly right now, looking at it, Brady Oliveira is the favorite to be the West nominee for the most outstanding player. Of course, he was that last year and fell short to Chad Kelly. I have a feeling those of us that jumped on that 14-1 number might be very happy come next month in BC. What do you have cooking in the Sun over the next couple of days heading into the weekend?
Yeah, mostly. I mean, freezer's on Bombers all week, so it's just me on Jets. Breaking down tonight's game. Putting a bow on training camp, right? After Friday's done. We're starting to look at the regular season, which is crazy. It's already it's October 2nd today, House. That's crazy. Minimum wage has gone up. It's cold now. Finally, it's not even that cold today, but yeah. So yeah, well, what a day for me. Yeah, exactly, right. So yeah, no, it's gonna be good. I mean, just another good week.
Go buy that random iron on Facebook Marketplace.
Oh no, man! I'm looking at this wood that is made of wood. So yeah, it is a classic, right? That'll get me add 20 yards to my game. So yeah, no, it's good. Yeah, just looking forward. I mean, again, it's a great time to be a sports fan in Winnipeg, right? And as we come to the fall here, regular season coming up, and obviously, the Bombers are going, and there's a lot to cheer for if you're a fan of these two teams. And so, yeah, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, really looking forward to
it. Should be fun. Maybe we'll see you at the rink tonight and over the course of the next week. And of course, Friday the Bombers on the road in the Hammer against the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Scott, thanks again for doing this.
Yeah, anytime, guys. Appreciate it.
Good stuff. There's Scott Billeck of the Winnipeg Sun. Big cheers to him and all of our friends over at Little Brown Jug.
We're not just for the showboats or the champions. We're here for the good ones. The ones who work hard and show up for others, not to get recognized, but because it's the right thing to do. We'd like to think that our good intentions show up in our beer. We keep working to perfect it, not because we want fame or fanfare, but because you deserve it. 1919, the good you deserve.
All right, yes, may have to grab a 1919 or a generic at the game tonight. Of course, you can pick up Little Brown Jug at all Winnipeg Jet games at Canada Life Centre. I got to let you know, though, folks, we got big weekend of NFL coming up. We've got the Bombers pushing for the playoffs and clinching a playoff spot and a home playoff game at Princess Auto Stadium. I'm counting on it being the West Final. If you want to get your new Jets merch or maybe add a little bit more to your blue and gold collection as the Jets and Bombers push forward into the fall, get on down to Royal Sports, the #1 sports superstore in town for all the home teams, as well as the best from professional sports, a massive NHL section, and the biggest and best NFL merch around, including all those cool new coaches' hats, which we've been seeing on the sidelines this year. And of course, when it comes to hockey, with the hockey being back, Royal Sports is, for over 40 years, the #1 hockey superstore in town for players of all ages and all skill levels. Everything you need to drop the puck is waiting for you at Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. Make sure to follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Winnipeg for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. And listen, it was a great day of Major League Baseball playoffs yesterday. They continue today. If you're not going to the game tonight, might be a great night to head on down to Boston Pizza, get the Jets game on one TV, and keep an eye on what's happening in the Major League Baseball playoffs in one of the others. Of course, Boston Pizza is also your home for NFL football. Tomorrow we've got the Bucks and Falcons kicking off Week 5. Monday nights, Thursday nights, Sunday at Boston Pizza. Pop in for NFL. Enjoy their new game day menu and great deals on that. And, of course, your chance to win a trip for two to Vegas for Super Bowl weekend, as well as NFL jerseys, NFL and Boston Pizza swag, and more. And if you are staying at home tonight, you can always order online and get the best from Boston Pizza by ordering online at bostonpizza.com. All right. We were just talking Bombers. We've got more Bomber and CFL talk coming up in about 15, 20 minutes when Jeff Hamilton joins me for the latest episode of CFL 110. We do have to get to the cool bet lines before we finish up and quickly touch on the baseball. But Remo, I believe we maybe have a little bit more from both Brad Lambert and Scott Arniel to wrap up the Jets convo today.
Yeah, just scroll down to the bottom of the sheet. This was actually from, you want to start with from Arniel here? Or
Yeah, let's start Arniel. We were just talking about Elias Salmonson quite a bit, and Arnie was asked about Elias and was asked where he wants to see Elias start the season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not making that decision until we get to until we have to. Put him on the left side today because we don't have an abundance of left-handed defensemen. May get a chance to see him tomorrow on the left side, so that'll be another test for him. Liked a lot of how he's grown through this camp. I saw him last year, but this year there's a different player there, a more experienced player. I thought the very first game he looked nervous, looked like he was kind of feeling things out. I thought in the last game in Mini he was really good. There's a lot of really good things he's done, but I don't just evaluate those games. These drills that we're doing in practice, especially when we get head-to-head on 5-on-5 stuff, I really get a chance to feel about his body positioning, his stick detail, his physicality, how he reads plays, how he reads rushes, and he's been good. He's gotten better probably the quickest answer. Probably he's gotten better as the week has gone on.
All right, so there's Scott Arniel. This is from yesterday, just on Elias and the play, and it's very clear that he's impressed Arniel so far. Here's one more from Arniel, and he said, and it was a little surprising, I think, to some earlier in camp, that he was sort of hoping for a 22-man roster to start the season. He was asked if that's changed at all after the injuries to Big Stan and Billy Heinola.
Well, that and waivers, we're going to have to kind of see. We'll have to play this out here. We'd like to get to that, whether that's game 1 or if that's game 10 or wherever we get to, because see where all our injured guys are moving down the road here. That's the only good thing that came out of that, is that we've had a few, maybe 2 weeks into their injury period and we haven't started the year yet. So we get to gain some time there. But we'll get to, I think it's this Sunday, we have to have our rosters in. So obviously waivers and all that will play into it.
All right, and here's one more from Scott Arniel. It was just asked about the response from players to him in his new role as the head coach of the Winnipeg Jets.
It's been good. I mean, good in the sense of how it's run so far, how it's been, I think it's been pretty smooth in the sense of kind of getting the message across and the video work we had to do, kind of implementing some of the system stuff. I know that kind of like today, last couple of days for our guys, that the big guys that will most likely be playing the last 2, it's been kind of keeping them up and running and keeping their sort of their energy and their mojo kind of as high as possible going into next week. So feel good that way. For me, it's been a big learning curve too, with having two more coaches that I'm kind of getting a feel for. Davis and Payne, how they work too. So not Davis and Payne, Dean and Davis, kind of getting a feel for those guys. But it's been good. I mean, the guys have been real responsive and real receptive to kind of how we've been kind of going about things. And obviously it's every day's a work day, and it's just come to work and get our job done.
All right, so there's Scott Arniel. Jets and Flames tonight, 7 o'clock, Canada Life Center. We spent a lot of time talking about where Brad Lambert fits in. Brad Lambert talked earlier about his path to making the team, now looking like possibility as a bottom 6 forward as opposed to, playing in that number 2 role right out the gate. Here's what Lambert had to say about that.
I mean, hopefully. I mean, obviously, like I said, I didn't really look at the path that, I was going to get there. All I knew was I needed to go to the rink every day and work my ass off. And, that was the path for me, is go to the rink and every day, no matter what happens, and be the best version of myself that I can be. And, whatever path it is, that's not up to me. That's up to the coaching staff. And so I leave it in their hands and, just come to the rink and do whatever I can.
Well, I think he's done a pretty darn good job of that. And, we said at the beginning of camp, for him, for Chibrikov, for Salamonson, I mean, make the coaches have tough decisions. Because the easiest decisions for players that are waiver exempt is to send them back to the American Hockey League and, revisit it later on. Lambert very much in the middle, and he'll be playing with Nino Niederreiter tonight, a veteran player, a guy with 20-plus goal seasons already under his belt in the National Hockey League. Here's what Brad had to say about getting the chance to have Nino on his wing tonight.
Yeah, he's awesome. I mean, he's a great player. Obviously a veteran, easy to play with. Also just a great guy to have on your line, easy to play with, gives you good advice, and just strong in the corners, helping in the corner battles and stuff like that, and makes great plays. So that's a great guy to have on your line.
And one more quickie from Lambeau on just what he wants to show in this game tonight at 7.
Yeah, I think the same thing. I've tried showing all camp, just trying to be responsible 200-foot game, and show the coaches that they can trust me. And it's a lot to do without the puck, and obviously with the puck, just play my game and try to make stuff happen.
You can tell the kid's a good listener because he certainly gets it, and he's going to have another opportunity to show what he can do tonight. This evening, playing with Nino Niederreiter and Chibrikov. Here's a quick clip from Nino. Obviously a big part of this team moving forward after signing that extension. Nino Niederreiter talked about playing on the wing with Brad Lambert tonight.
Obviously he's highly skilled. He's very fast and sees the ice pretty well, and he's a confident skater out there, and I think that's something you see in practice and something you want to see in the game tonight. And like I said, he has been a really good camp, and I hope he's going to be better moving forward.
What are some of the things that you've observed that he needs to, I guess, up his game to get to that pro level, to make the jump from AHL to NHL?
I think the biggest thing is obviously the decisions he makes between the blue lines, and a matter of getting pucks out, getting pucks in deep, and winning your one-on-one battles. I think that comes to, for him, it's the most important thing right now, to just kind of make sure when to make that play and when not.
All right, so there's Nino and Lambo playing together with Chibrikov on one of the Jets' bottom six lines, if you will, tonight. But I think they'll probably roll the lines, give everyone a chance to show what they can do. And I'll be there tonight. Looking forward to seeing what we get from this club, and in particular, all eyes on 93 and what he can do to further his push to crack the opening day roster of the Winnipeg Jets. Don't forget, CFL 110 coming up in about 10 or 15 minutes as soon as we are finished up with WST. Remo, did you watch much baseball yesterday?
I actually didn't see any. I had my son's first skating lesson of this new season, and then I was in a hockey draft at 8, and it was an auction, and very, very dialed in.
Who did you spend your cash on? Who were the big purchases on the squad?
Well, I always feel McDavid goes for like way too much, so we weren't in on him. I think our most expensive guy was Panarin, who got hurt yesterday right after we picked him. Or sorry, I think Quinn Hughes was up there. And Jack Hughes. We got the Hughes brothers. Those were our 3 expensive guys.
You must have been loving Wish talk about how good he thinks the Jersey Devils are going to be this year.
I'll say this. Funny enough, so we got Jack Hughes, and we needed a winger. We ended up getting Jesper Bratt, I thought, for a steal. And then I was like, well, we need another winger, so let's just take Timo Meier. So we got him as well. So we have the whole top line. And I think in a head-to-head league, I've never actually done that. I do a lot of stacking, mostly in daily fantasy, but I think if you take a whole line, that can be beneficial if they have a big week.
Listen, just quickly to get to update, Tigers and Astros, 0-0 now in the bottom of the 5th. Detroit with that big win on the back of Tariq Skubal's brilliant start yesterday, favorite for the AL Cy Young. And the Tigers and Astros playing. Astros have to win to force a deciding Game 3. As far as the rest of the MLB postseason tonight, the Royals, what a win yesterday for Kansas City. 1-0. First team to win a Major League Baseball playoff game with 5 or less hits and only 4 batters above the minimum. They only put 31 guys to the plate last night. They got 1 key hit, I believe it was from Bobby Witt, and they had just a masterful pitching performance. It kind of reminded me of that pitching that the Royals had in 2014 and 2015 in their back-to-back trips to the World Series. Royals tonight, plus 125 underdogs against the Orioles. Orioles minus 147. That game's going to be getting going in about half an hour. Later on, 4:30 or thereabouts, Mets and Brewers. And this Mets team, Remo, is hilarious. We're so used to the Mets being like, just whatever, the basically walking Murphy's Law. They're turning it around. They give up the 4 runs in the 8th inning against Atlanta in the game they had to have yesterday or on Monday. And then they hit a 2-run homer at the end. They've had 8 runs across the plate against top pitching in their last 2 meaningful games. I kind of like them to end it tonight. Mets are plus 101. Brewers minus 119. And that's the exact same number in the finale tonight. The Braves and the Padres. Braves shut out yesterday by the Padres. Tatis with the big 2-run homer. That was all they needed on the 4-0 win. Padres minus 119. Joe Musgrove on the hill versus Max Fried for the Atlanta Braves. So there you have the baseball story for tonight. As far as the CFL lines, tomorrow in the Lock Shop, we'll make our picks for the week in the Canadian Football League. Bombers and Ticats. Bombers are 4-point favorites and minus 204 on the money line. The BC Lions are 7.5-point favorites at home against the Calgary Stampeders, who are into next year territory. BC's minus 385 on the money line. And I think, there's 2 really interesting games. We talked about Winnipeg Hamilton with Billeck. Saskatchewan Edmonton as well. Saskatchewan can really grab their hold on second place in a potential home playoff game with a win, which would also eliminate the Elks. Elks have to win. Saskatchewan's 2-point favorites in Edmonton for that game on Saturday. And as far as the CFL futures go, I mentioned the crazy drop in Brady Oliveira's MOP number. Here's what the MOP odds are, and we'll talk about this with Jeff. Cody Fajardo minus 154. Brady Oliveira plus 140. And again, that was 14-1 last week. Bo Levi Mitchell 10-1. Looks like a 3-horse race because you got Rourke, McInnes, Zach Caleros, Harris, Milligan, all anywhere between 55-1 and 65-1. The one other odds that I'll give you for is for tomorrow's Thursday nighter in the NFL. The Bucks and Falcons playing at the Georgia Dome. Atlanta 2-point favorites at home and minus 122 on the money line. Tampa plus 103. Today on the Lock Shop, Dusty and I hit a bunch of our favorite NHL player props for the season. We're going to be doing that again tomorrow, as well as some of our, division winners, award winners, and whatnot. And of course, being all over the CFL. And then our big Monday show with our NFL best bets. I will take this opportunity to Barry Horowitz myself. I am 10-5-1 against the spread, despite it being such a graveyard so far this year. We will try and keep it going. And yesterday, we were a perfect 3-0, including our double play. The double play is up if you want to ride with us. We cashed it yesterday with the Mets win and the Padres run line. Bit of a tougher matchup for the Padres tonight, so we're not taking the run line. We are taking the money line. We've got the Mets to win and the Padres to win. Both teams to move on tonight. Our pals Patty and Jacob boosted it from plus 270 to plus 310. So there you have it. That's the Lock Shop double play. Get over to CoolBet. If you haven't played a CoolBet before, use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. Oh, and I know there was a lot of people that were asking about the poker tourney. The next Lock Shop WST EST poker tourney is scheduled for October 29th. So you can circle that on the calendar, and we'll look forward to seeing you then. That's going to do it for us, but not really, because we're going to hook up with the Hammer in Hamilton coming up right away and dive into another episode of CFL 110 presented by Garage Living Winnipeg. A huge thanks to all of our sponsors. By the way, if you missed at the start of the show, winnipegjets.com/WST for information on our Game of the Month promo. The first game is October 20th against Pittsburgh. Same section we had last year, same great group of people. Hopefully you'll join us for all 6 of the games, but especially the kickoff to it with the visit of Sidney Crosby and potentially someone that will get a lot of attention as well. We'll see what happens when Pittsburgh makes their final cuts. But again, winnipegjets.com/WST. Jump on those, get your tickets for that and the home opener heading into next Friday. Thanks to Scott Billeck and Greg Wyshynski, Michael Remis, of course, all of our sponsors that make the show happen every day. But don't go anywhere, because in just a couple minutes, we'll be firing up another edition of CFL 110 right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.